Now, let's hear this specific soundbite, if you will, from Melania Trump from last night.
His success indicates inclusion rather than division. My husband offers a new direction, welcoming change, prosperity, and greater cooperation among peoples and nations. Donald intends to represent all the people, not just some of the people. That includes Christians and Jews and Muslims. It includes Hispanics and African Americans and Asians and the poor and the middle class.
Underneath the surface, there is much more for Republicans to be concerned with than a plagiarized speech and a delegate uprising. This is where the GOP has to take a stand and prove to everybody that Donald Trump is the unifier he claims to be, and that putting the country into the hands of Hillary is not merely wrong but dangerous. Words are one thing, actions are another. This is the week where Republicans must let their actions speak louder than words, because this is where the messaging must come together in that drive toward November. One who understands the urgency is our next guest. Former Texas congressman and Republican House Majority Leader, now author of the new book, Revival, Revolution, and Rebirth, which we will talk about, Congressman Tom DeLay joins us on the hard line. Congressman, let me begin with that specific soundbite that we just played from Melania Trump, where she was talking about the unification process. She mentioned Hispanics, African Americans, Muslims, so many other people. But those specific groups still don't feel as if that they are wanted in the Republican Party. The numbers are out there saying that they simply don't feel as if there has been any outreach to them whatsoever. Is it a good call then for those who have the opinion that that outreach hasn't started, that outreach needs to be there, and the Republicans are not doing a good enough job right now to pull those groups in?
Well, that's for sure. I think once Donald Trump was named the presumptive nominee, reality set in his reality show. They figured out that, number one, they only got a little over 40% of the vote in the Republican Party. 60% did not vote for Donald Trump in the Republican Party. They figured out that they have a real problem with their base and conservatives like me. They figured out that in order to win, they're going to have some sort of move, especially in the Hispanics, amongst the Hispanics. I mean, Republicans traditionally get about 30%. Donald Trump is at 13 or 14% in the last poll I saw. So they're figuring it out. I don't know if they have enough time, nor do they have the organization to accomplish that. We'll see. He's supposed to be a successful businessman. Let's see if he can put together a successful organization that can actually run a general election campaign.
Congressman, would you want to say right now and agree with those who say that Donald Trump has the absolute worst campaign ground game and the worst organization that we have seen put together in politics in decades? It simply is awful. It stinks, some people say.
Well, it's not awful and it doesn't stink because it doesn't exist. There is no organization. He's relying on the Republican Party, and he's relying on the organization of the Republican Party. It's been my experience that the Republican Party is important, and those activists in the Republican Party are important, but you still have to run your own campaign. You have to have your own organization. The party cannot run an election. It's involved in up and down the ballot. So he's going to have, maybe this is a new era where all you have to do is put on a reality show and go out there and make speeches and have rallies and get the media to give you $3 billion worth of coverage and you win. But I'm an old schooler. I'm from, you have to have an organization. You have to have people on the ground doing the grunt work, going door to door, making the calls, putting stamps on the envelope.
You have to have leadership. You've got to have leadership at the end of the day, or you can't make it happen. 45 seconds, we're going to take a break, but let me ask you quickly. Paul Manafort came out and blamed Hillary Clinton for Melania Trump's speech plagiarism allegation. Is it not just time that they stop this, get back on message, and stop these attacks that really don't help the issues any at all?
Well, yeah, but it was obvious to me. I'm sure Melania had a lot to do with the speech, but she didn't write it. And that speech was written by a professional. It looked like a professional speech. I would have much rather seen some close stories about Donald Trump and his
Sure.
family, that kind of stuff. I think it would have gone over a lot better.
It would have humanized the man, which is exactly what they have to do, and that's what the presumptive First Lady is there to do every single time. Make him closer, get him closer to the people. I got one other point on that we'll get to in a moment. Congressman Tom DeLay is going to stay with us through the break, and when we come back, money, making points, and why a simple apology is not a bad thing. Don't apologize. Make sure you join us tomorrow night and Thursday night right here on Newsmax for our special Republican National Convention coverage. Begins at 7 o'clock Eastern Time Wednesday night. The Hardline will continue. Tuesday version of The Hardline continues. We want to encourage you to get on the line, be part of the conversation. Comments, questions, quips, queries, conundrums, we get it all. Issues of the day. 1-877-NEWSMAX, 1-877-639-7629. Let us then dive back into the discussion with the former Texas congressman, now a conservative political consultant, Tom DeLay. Congressman, let me ask you this something, going back to the last segment that we talked about here with regard to everything that happened on Monday. What about an apology? Seriously. What about a good public relations person just coming out and saying, Mrs. Trump may have said something, she really didn't mean it. By the way, we have a lot of respect for Michelle Obama. She just accidentally put it in there. Hey, sorry about that, guys. Why not just do something like that and get ahead of this and just put an end to all this ridiculousness that's going on?
Well, Ed, I got to tell you, I don't see this as plagiarism, to be honest with you. I think this is an attack on her that is unjustified. We all use these same words when we describe things like, values and trustworthiness and trust, and using those kinds of words. I guess it would have been politically smart to just say, yeah, maybe we use some of the same words and try to move on. But to be honest with you, I don't think the media would let them do that.
Shouldn't this really be much ado about nothing, actually? Look, mistakes were made, things happen. Move on here, for crying out loud. This isn't what Republicans need. It's not what conservatives need. It's not what they believe the nation needs at this point. Just move on and plow through and apologize. Just get behind it.
We've got so much to talk about, and here we are, spent a whole day talking about whether Melania plagiarized Michelle or not.
All right, and you're exactly right. That was my whole point. Let's move on. Now, you talk about the issues that we have to discuss, and I want to get to this. This caught me this morning. NBC News contributor Nicole Wallace, who's a Republican, she was grilling Senators John Barrasso and Tom Cotton on the GOP's reliance on the white man vote. She went right at him. You could tell that she was upset about this as a female, and they didn't have any answers. Here's what they said.
We, as a party, are losing women by 23 points at the top of our ticket. Do you even want to win with just white men voting Republican? I'm embarrassed. Serious. George W. Bush won 44% of the Hispanic vote. He narrowed the gender gap to a historic level that we haven't matched since 2004. Are you proud that our path to victory is just to turn out more white guys?
I think go ahead.
From two white guys sitting with us, yes?
There really was a moment there where neither one of them wanted to touch the question. It was radioactive to them. Isn't it fair to say, though, that these are the things that the Trump campaign, the people around him, and congressmen, others need to get in front of right now? Go out, just take it on. And these are the things you've got to get after, because I think she speaks for a lot of people. They feel embarrassed.
Well, exactly, and it's why I wrote the book. I thought this election was going to be about major things, about visions, about worldviews, about either going in the direction of socialism or going back to constitutionalism and capitalism. And yet, what are we talking about? Major issues like immigration, trade, those kinds of things, veterans affairs. All symptoms of what is the major problem in this country. And frankly, if you're going to reach out to women, you've got to talk about things that are important to them: faith, family, rules, constitution, values. Women vote on security issues. Security is in their homes, security is in their cities, security is in their nation. We've got to understand that we've got to broaden this message to a visionary message if we're going to win. Now, we've got the best opponent we could ever wish for, and that's Hillary Clinton. But this is going to come down to a race between who you're against, not who you're for.
There was something very interesting that was said, and a couple of comments that came out in various articles talking about the GOP's shadow convention here. And this quoted former President Bush, who said, and I quote, "I'm worried that I will be the last Republican president." This comes at a time when Newt Gingrich has taken on the Bushes and said, you should be embarrassed. You should be here right now getting behind the Republican candidate. But what about that one? What about that comment from him that I'll be the last Republican president when there is a faction right now in the Republican Party that is already planning on losing this election and seeing what they can do going forward?
Well, that's the state of affairs in the Republican Party right now. It's terribly split. I saw a poll just the other day that 60% of a national poll, all people voting, don't like the choices that have been the Democrats and Republicans have presented to them. This is causing a fissure, not just within the party; it's all over the country, and that's why I'm saying the people are begging for leadership, and that's why some of my friends and colleagues are hanging on to Donald Trump because they see some sort of leadership in him. But it's not the leadership that the American people are begging for. And this is the damnedest thing I ever saw.
All right, so let me stop you there then, because you hit the point earlier and I've made it in the show. So have others. Republicans will do anything to make sure that Hillary Clinton does not take over the White House right now. They consider that to be the greatest disaster that this country can face at this point. You have been there before. You've been inside the Beltway. You know how people think. So then let me ask you flat out, in your opinion, coming out of this convention, what's got to happen? What's got to push forward? Because if you look at some of the polls right now, as a matter of fact, there was a New York Times poll, and again, a left-leaning New York Times poll, we get it, people will say that, but it looked at the chances for Hillary Clinton to be president in one of their blogs, and it had them at 76% over Donald Trump. Granted, it's only one poll, and polls don't mean anything until we really get towards November. We get that. But what, in your opinion, has got to happen coming out of this convention that has got to energize this base and has got to get people understanding how, in the Republican mindset, Hillary's got to go?
Well, first of all, you got to get the candidate talking in visionary terms. Frankly, I don't know if Donald Trump's even read the Constitution. Secondly, and they're doing it. I'm very encouraged by his list of judges that he would appoint. I'm very encouraged by picking Mike Pence. I'm encouraged, and the signals that they're trying to pull the party together and they're trying to reach out to conservatives and the conservative movement to come on board. And he's doing some of the right things. So if they pull together an organization, they've got time to do that, I think. And Donald Trump starts talking in visionary terms so they can reach a wider audience. I think we got a shot at Hillary Clinton.
Then let me do this then. I got less than 60 seconds left. In your book, Revival, Revolution, and Rebirth, what could Donald Trump and his people take from that book and what you're talking about to get this thing on the track they need to defeat Hillary Clinton?
Well, they have to convince the American people that we need a revolution for the Constitution. If we're going to turn around the state of affairs in this country, we have to put God back in a public square and have a revolution for the Constitution. That's what the book is about. And Donald Trump talking about fundamental change in the federal government. The federal government has failed the American people. It's too big, it's too large, it costs too much, and it has to be pared down to constitutional means. And that's what I think Donald Trump needs to be talking about, is he's going to not fundamentally change by building a wall, fundamentally change by getting rid of entitlement programs. Fundamentally changed by getting rid of unconstitutional departments. Yep. Fundamentally changed by getting rid of the income tax. those kinds of changes. Take on the lawless Supreme Court. Take on talk about changing the presidency to where it's lawless again. I mean, there's lawful again.
Where it's lawful again and not lawless again, which is exactly what a lot of people... We're all out of time, unfortunately. I want to remind everybody the book is Revival, Revolution, Rebirth. It's a good roadmap that Donald Trump and conservatives should look at. Tom DeLay, thank you so much, my friend Congressman. We appreciate you joining us. A couple of minutes we got here. Andrea, Smithfield, Michigan. You think Melania Trump did a great job? You got 25 seconds. Tell us why. Yes,
I do. I think she did a wonderful job. I watched it from beginning to end on C-SPAN, and I think the media is just trying to make a whole lot of hoopla about nothing. Why didn't they talk about all the Benghazi stuff? I mean, they went straight to Melania's...
Well, but let's wait a minute. Let's point out that last night, the mother of one of the Benghazi dead was there. But then again, Donald Trump called Fox News while she was talking. They went to his phone call instead of listening to her speech. So they were talking about it, but you're right. We need to continue talking about that more. Thank you. Scott in Belleville, Kansas. I got 20 seconds. You think Tom DeLay needs to support Donald Trump. Tell me why.
Well, he's what's wrong with the Republican Party. He's afraid to admit the majority of the people voted for Donald Trump. I didn't even vote for him, but he's the guy. So you got to get behind and support him.
You got to get behind and support your candidate.
I'm 100% disabled Vietnam vet.
All right, we appreciate your call. We got to go. Thank you very much, and thank you for your service. Don't forget, our special Republican National Committee coverage begins Wednesday night at 7 o'clock, but we've got more to go on this edition of The Hardline right after this. Stay tuned.